Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Before I get started, I would like to commend actually the conference organizers. The previous session we just heard is very close to my heart. When Director Tuviria was talking about K-12 and how it relates to higher education, I had a background in that space before I came to the US in Finland. We worked very closely with K-12 by bringing entrepreneurship from the university world to the K-12 world. And we helped young fledgling entrepreneurs to set their path forward and gave them a direction to entrepreneurship. So what I heard just earlier resonates very strongly with my heart and with my passion, which is of course entrepreneurship, working practice, and also of course in terms of education. It's a pleasure to be here, it's an honor, what a fantastic conference, and let's get started. So my agenda for today is threefold. I'm going to talk a little bit about building an organization which is highly entrepreneurial, and it happens to be in education. I'm also going to be talking about what it means to learn entrepreneurship, learn about new business ventures. And I'm going to do that in a very practical way. That's the way I teach entrepreneurship. And then finally, I'm going to wrap up by talking about entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial minds, and how we can see them in action. Do we have any questions, any concerns before I get started? Super. So to start with, I would actually like to take you back 100 years. This is my great-grandfather, who was the son of a farmer, and he was set on a path to become an entrepreneur. I'm pretty sure he didn't use the word entrepreneur back then because it didn't exist, but he used the word businessman. And when you read through what he said about what a businessman is to the society, you very much understand how I see business ever since. I'm actually the 5th generation of entrepreneurs myself, and he is one of my grandfathers who has been an entrepreneur before me. And I was brought up by an entrepreneurial mother who was an entrepreneur in the 4th generation. So that's what I have in my legacy when I come to entrepreneurship. So when you look at my personal dimensions, I'm very strongly tied to Hult International Business School, which is based around the world, but I'm based in Boston with Hult. I was there for 8 years as Dean and Executive Director, and now I actually moved back to being a Professor of Practice in Entrepreneurship. We were joking here earlier why I didn't have a tie on today, and the reason is, when I was a Dean, I always wore a tie, and the faculty never did. So when I went back to being a Professor of Practice, this is how you're going to see me from here onwards. So when you see me next time with a tie on, you know that I have gotten a formal administrative position again. Secondly, I'm also tied to Harvard, as you heard, and I'm also on the executive board of the executive education of Hanken's executive education, and I've been there for several years. Hanken is actually my alma mater, based in Helsinki, Finland. And then to continue the track of entrepreneurship in my family, I also have a small boutique advising business where I work with corporate clients and also with some business school and university clients as well. So let's look on what does it mean to build a new kind of a business school. When I first started with Hult 8 years ago, the strategy was very bold. Let's build a business school that spans the globe and is highly practical in doing so. So when I think about 8 years ago, a little bit over 10 years ago when Hult set on this path, think about technology. I was in 93, 94 in Australia, and I called home to my parents, collect call, because I was out of money and they had the money, so they had to pay for Henrik calling them. And of course, when I communicated with my family, it was mostly through letters. Letters, not even email. And when it was really kind of advanced, we were sending faxes to each other. Okay, the world changed a little bit, so 10 years ago we had email, we had some tools, but it was rather expensive to run a global business school. So we, for example, invested heavily in a video conferencing system that never quite worked. Today, when I look at the technology that is way superior to that technology, it will cost the school some hundreds a month to run. So in that sense, running a global business school is today way easier than it has ever been. When I started 8 years ago with Hult, we had a campus in Boston, we had a campus in Dubai, and we had just started a campus in London. And of course, rapid forward, now we have 7 campuses around the world. And one of the campuses is the Ashridge Business School, which is extremely well known in Middle East, Asia and Europe in terms of executive education. And Hult, with its degree programs, operationally merged with Ashridge in 2015. And that was one of the final things I did with Hult in my dean role. I was on the team of merging the two schools and working with the accreditations and regulations. And I jokingly say, when you look on the combination of these two schools, it's like Dropbox. For our students, it's very easy to understand the concept and it looks very simple. But trust me, to run a school across 7 campuses and many different continents, it takes a lot of frameworks, it takes a lot of governance, and it of course also takes technology to enable it. But I would like to emphasize that technology is an enabler. Technology is not the means to an end. It needs willpower from the administration, from the supporters, and foremost, of course, faculty. So when we look on Hult and the vision of Hult, it's an interesting school. Today we can offer US and UK degrees on all of our campuses around the world. Not an easy achievement to achieve, and we did it in a relatively short time span. We are very research-oriented, but in a high way. We want to do research that is highly relevant to the world, and in that sense, our faculty are of course publishing in peer-reviewed journals, but are also actively contributing in other means. For example, I just signed and actually contributed my first presentation on Business FM, a Finnish radio station. And I'm going to be featuring a featuring speaker there from here onwards once every second week. So that's a way to be active in a research way, in a very practical way, talking out there with real people conducting business. And I also think that when we look on our faculty, traditionally Hult and Ashridge in itself had a very practice-oriented faculty, and now over the years we have increasingly balanced out with research orientation among our faculty. And I'm in charge of faculty recruitment for the moment in Boston, both for the undergraduate and graduate program. And my strong emphasis is on finding faculty. Of course, they are also research active. And as we know, those who are program administrators, it's not an easy task. That's why I have a few gray hair. But just very quickly looking at our programs, and I'm not going to dwell into depth in them, I'm just going to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship related to the programs. So first of all, our undergraduate program has different features in it. And when you look on the fact that it's an American, US accredited business program with a very strong core. And the core, of course, is essential, but it's backed up by general education, as all US programs are. When you look on the course level, I think we have been pretty strategic and smart. We have built our general education, so it supports the core, but it also supports where our students are heading. And I think when I compare to some of our competitors, they are perhaps a little bit more generic if you look on the general education basis. We have also integrated core challenges throughout the curriculum. So our students are almost like an onion. They are peeling practical challenges from the get-go, from the beginning of the program and throughout. And that means that they are all the time learning academic, conceptual materials, but then they also, on the other hand, get to work with the real world, applying them in practice in a safe environment. And I think that helps us to bring together a very diverse student body, and it also helps us to make them job ready during their bachelor's program. And on top of that, of course, our students in the undergraduate program are strongly encouraged to work in a business sometime during their studies. And on top of all of this, having 7 campuses around the world allows us also to have our students rotate between campuses. And that means in practice that in 1 year, a student can be in 3 different locations. And over the course of 4 years of study, we can just count how many times they can rotate between subjects. So then moving over to our master's programs and the MBA program, Hult is a very unique school. We don't really have science degrees as such. What we have are practice-oriented programs, and they all started already in the 60s from the MBA program. It's kind of the predecessors of the MBA program. And that program was from day one very international, practice-oriented, and geared towards business leaders who can work in a civic way, sustainable way in the international marketplace. So when I started with Hult in 2010, we actually added our second master's program, which was the Master of International Business. And the interesting aspect here is that the Hult MBA program is for students who are more experienced than traditionally in US schools. Our MBA students have roughly 6 to 8 years of work experience, when in a competitive school in the US, the age level would be lower. So the Master of International Business program was interesting in the sense that it was geared towards this category of students who have 0 to 3 years of work experience. And it's today our largest master's program, immensely successful. And then you look on the executive MBA, it has gone through different iterations over the years, but the most amazing thing with this program is that entrepreneurs or business leaders who are in the program, they can today study in 4 different locations around the world, module by module. That means in practice, if you have 20 courses that you're supposed to take, you can decide if you want to every time move to a different location to take a course. And for traveling entrepreneurs, for example, this is a huge value proposition, that you can live in Dubai, take the bulk of your courses there, you can visit your clients in London, take some of your courses there, and then you can also come to Boston and take some of your courses on our campus there. So maximizing flexibility and also, of course, building a global society of EMBA students. And as we know, EMBA student populations typically are kind of geared towards the regional because they're working students. And then we have added on top of these a number of different specialized master's programs. And increasingly, of course, the market and the competition is requiring specializations. And we have, of course, also followed that trend. And we have added business analytics, which is, of course, as you probably know in the US context, an important topic, because if you have students graduating from a STEM-oriented program, which stands for science, technology, and so forth. So it's basically a program for the kind of the mathematical-oriented students. They can stay in the States for up to 3 years. Compared to someone graduating from a pure MBA program, can stay for 1 year after graduation. And then we have also added dual degrees. So we have our MIB and MBA students enabled to continue specialize in an entire second degree. And this is, of course, also a great value proposition for students who, first of all, want to find more in-depth intelligence, knowledge, experience in a certain topic area to make them more competitive in the market space. But it also enables them to stay longer in the study environment than just their main master's program. So when you look on our faculty, I'm a pretty typical representation of our faculty. Our faculty are practitioners, our faculty are academics, and somewhere in between. And I think that's the richness of our classroom environment. We bring together the world from out there in different ways when we teach, when we talk with our students, and when we solve problems. And I think that's something that our students resonate with a lot. And a typical classroom has 70 students, for example, and they come from 40 different nationalities, different countries. So you can imagine the rich flavor of the students, what they bring to the classroom environment as well. So it's not only about the professors who are international, it's also the students. Or who are diverse, it's also the student body. And of course, important for rankings, important for this existence of a tuition-driven school, our graduates are employed well post-graduation, and increasingly we of course also see entrepreneurship coming out from our student body, and a lot of family businesses are represented among our students. And this goes back to what I said about the bachelor's. Also in the master's program, we have practice-oriented kind of capstone programs like the Hult Business Challenge. Interestingly, in the past we worked only with corporate clients, and then we said to students that from here onwards you can choose. Do you want to work with a corporate client? We talked Siemens, Philips, Unilever, IBM, Domino's Pizza was just recently, that kind of brands. Or do you want to start your own business? And surprisingly, to everyone involved, from the first year onwards, over 60% of our student body chose entrepreneurship. We also use a lot of simulations, and I saw we have CES in here in the conference. On top of that, we also build a leadership skills track in our master's programs. It's not a course, it's actually a track. So throughout their studies, they will go to this continuous journey to develop their leadership skills. And I'm a strong believer when we look on entrepreneurship, leadership skills are at the core. How do you bring that charisma together to get things done together with others. And just a final point I want to make about Hult. When you look at our students, when they apply to us and why they come to us, 99% of them come to us for change. The change could be changing their careers, the change could be they want to have a new subject area, expertise in a new subject area, and very often it's also that they want to go to a new kind of geography, they want to relocate to a new place. And not surprisingly, students want to have all at once. Many of them want to change their career, they want to change their kind of education, and they also want to change their geography all at once. And that's of course something our career services team is sweating and helping them with, and they've been, as you saw from the numbers, really successful over the years. And then just to kind of wrap up, the big news of course from Hult is that we are the first US school which is triple accredited. But then moving over to looking on new business venturing, and I'm actually leaving Hult behind. I'm moving over the street along the river, Charles River, to Harvard, and we're going to look on my Harvard Extension course. And it's a very interesting course, and I was given, and it's interesting because I think it's interesting, but I think the students also find it interesting because it's so practice-oriented. But I was given by the leadership at Harvard Extension School fairly free hands to develop a course that would be highly practical and would take students with limited or no knowledge or some experience from entrepreneurship in a spring semester from nothingness to enabling them to execute companies. And the course is a hybrid course. So the way it works is that we use Canvas, which also Hult is using. That's kind of the motherboard of the course online. And then we use Zoom video conferencing as a technology for classes. But most importantly, the semester-long class starts in January with an extended weekend on campus. So I was given the privilege to teach in Harvard Hall, and those who have been in Cambridge on the Harvard campus knows that that's one of the most prominent buildings on campus, and that's where my class took place. We were there from Friday to Sunday, just getting our teams ready to build ventures. And then they went back home to their destinations, and they were forced to work as teams with people they barely knew from before, virtually located around the country. And I think our furthest student is from Brazil. So in that sense, from all over the place. And I'm very pleased to say that this course has generated, we have 7 companies or ventures after this weekend, and I'm certain that 2 of them are definitely going to execute. And bear in mind that I talk about full-time employed students who are doing this part-time in the evenings. So to have the guts to move forward and start a business takes a lot. And the way I teach entrepreneurship, as I said, is practical, but it's also, when we talk about venture capital, I try to stay away from that. This course is much more about how can we build frugal, sustainable businesses that we can finance initially from our own pockets or from our friends and family. So this is in short the journey of the course, and as you see, the 48 VC, that stands for 48 hours of venture creation. That takes place on the Harvard campus. And then the rest of the course is actually virtual, if you run it on Zoom. And I built the course in a smart way. Students are in charge of their team assignment, but they actually report back as individuals. So they work continuously throughout the course on their teamwork, but they have to report individually what they have done towards the teamwork. And that way I have complete control over, first of all, who is doing what, and I will see if there is team conflict taking place. And I invented this along the road when I was thinking about how can I bring responsiveness to individuals in a team, especially in a virtual setting. And without bragging, I have to say this innovation is working immensely well. It's a fantastic kind of update my way of assessing students and also in progressing entrepreneurial ventures. So what I thought I would do, I'm not going to go into every session here, but I thought I would show you a little bit what happens when we are on Harvard campus, and that's the 48 VC. So what I say to students is that before you come to class, you have to have 3 independent individual business ideas that you are excited about. And they have to send those to me in advance. They also report to me different things that speaks about them as entrepreneurs, in terms of their experience, their excitement, and so forth. And then I assign to 2 individuals in the team specific roles. And the first role is to be a director of the team, so that's more kind of a project leader if you want. And then the other one is actually more important. It's the role of the designer. What I do in my class is, and especially when we are together, there's always someone drawing if this would be my class, there would be someone sitting there. The only thing he or she would be doing would be drawing what I say. And constantly, professor, is this what you mean? Is this what you mean? And that's so immensely powerful when we talk about entrepreneurship, to visualize what we are trying to say. And often when we visualize that are unsaid in the words, they come real on paper. And we also, of course, notice things that don't work in practice. So that's why the designer has in the team an immensely important role. Then a second set of people who are immensely important are the experts. So what I do when we get together, I bring together a fleet of experts from the areas of kind of strategy, execution, competence, and communication. And their role is to just walk around, and they are not allowed to criticize, they're not allowed to push the students, they are allowed to encourage them, and anything is possible during this weekend. And of course, failure is granted. We fail a lot during this weekend. And these individuals are there to help me to pick up the straps on the floor and re-energize the teams to move and push forward. And it's amazing how easy it is to get a fleet of people from Friday to Sunday to be involved in something like this. Executives from out there, involving them in my educational journey, they like it and they think it's a way for them to contribute and give back to the society. And of course they get to work with inspiring students. So this is the way I bring the world back into the classroom. But this is just the process in short. So as you can see, the journey goes through a lot of ideation, so a lot of ideas initially, and then gradually towards the end of the weekend, I force the teams to choose a couple of their ideas that they think could actually move forward. And those are the ideas that we work with throughout the course. And bear in mind, these are bare scratches or ventures at this point. Throughout the spring of the course, we work again and again and again trying to find out what is the real truth in terms of these businesses. And the most important aspect is we think about the customer, the client out there, and their problems all the time. This gives you a little bit of a feel from the classroom environment, what kind of students we have there. But that's in short the New Business Venturing course. This is my first fully online course that I teach with this hybrid weekend. And I've been highly inspired by the technology, and Harvard Extension is already asking me, I'm developing a year-long course as a capstone for growth businesses, and that's going to come out in 2019, 2020. And it's building on the same technologies, same platforms, and this is the way forward, I think, for many educational institutions. The important thing to think about here is that Hult has grown immensely rapidly. We have done very little of this. So we have done our teaching solely in classroom environments, on campuses, with minimal even interaction between campuses. That's growing now, and we are looking into that. But online education using the new technologies is something that we have not been involved in. Harvard Extension, on the other hand, they are very advanced in this space, and they have a huge fleet of experts who help out people like me. So then moving to my final topic is the entrepreneurial minds in action. And I'm going to take us back to 2010 when I first started at Hult. And at Hult there was a consulting club in Boston. And one of the students in the consulting club was Ahmad Ashkar. But there was also a student called Jose Escobar from this very city. And he was there. I didn't know about this city before that, but through the years I got to know the city pretty well through Jose. And they had a team of 4 to 5 people who were thinking about how could we, as a business school, give back to the society? How could we help those in need? And that's how Hult Prize got started. And I think Hult Prize is kind of a grand example of what Hult is all about. First of all, Hult as an institution is very low when it comes to hierarchy. So for students to come up with an idea of a global business challenge may sound for many institutions as like, wow, rocket science, how did that happen? At Hult, it happened by students walking into first the dean's offices, talking with the team there, and when they were not convinced, they walked up straight to the president of the institution saying that this needs to happen, we need to do something around this topic. And from year one, it was named something else in the beginning, but from year one we had 40-50 teams competing on 5 of our campuses simultaneously to solve a practical case. And over the years, The competition has of course grown, and we have national competitions to support the finals that take place in New York. But the core essence and still the operations are run by students supported by faculty. And of course Ahmad is a proud alum of the school, and Jose Escobar was the smart one. He got a job with Verizon, and he's a senior executive at Verizon in Boston. And I'm actually working with him and his colleagues in my disruptive business models course taking place in June. So he's well positioned and closely tuned to Hult Price as well. So just got some footage here. In 2012, Bill Clinton on the cover of Time magazine says that Hult Price is one of the 5 top ideas changing the world. And people were wondering how on earth did this happen, how much did you pay him? And the reality is, of course, that Clinton had been for a number of years the keynote speaker for Hult Price finals in New York. And he was insisting on making Hult Price the dinner kind of gala kind of attention bringer at the Clinton Global Initiative in New York. And for some reason we were slowly acting, and he was pushing these ways, and the rest is history. For many years we were part of the Clinton Global Initiative. And now most recently Hult Price is actually staged on the UN Week in New York. So one of the opening ceremonies there are 6 to 8 teams coming together, competing on a problem around the world. Last year it was related to refugees, and they work closely with students, so closely together as teams of students on solving this problem. And then the best teams come to New York and present. There's Ahmad. That's all I have for you. I'm very, very keen and happy to answer any questions that you may have. And as you can hear, my Spanish is way worse than my English. I apologize for that. So I've been given this machine, and I'm sure someone in the audience can help interpret it as needed.
Tenemos tiempo para algunas preguntas. Necesitamos el micrófono, por favor. Aquí, la tercera fila.
I can speak louder.
Ah,
Can you hear
yes,
me?
yes.
So, I have been in my position for 2 months as a dean of the School of Business.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I have found that when you want to find a professor to teach innovation or entrepreneurship, everybody hesitates. So I think that it's part of our responsibility, administrators, to prepare them to teach this kind of classes very effectively. What is your recommendation? What we should do with this type of professor that they are faculty, they are full time with us, how we can train them to really build a great entrepreneurial innovation class?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of things. I think when I look at Boston again, the problem is the opposite. We have too many faculty members from outside who would like to teach with us entrepreneurship or innovation. So it's a competitive landscape there again. So it probably depends on the region as well. But I think the way I've been teaching entrepreneurship always is I try to stay tuned to the world out there myself, but I always bring also practitioners into my classroom. And I bring them always in on my own terms. I never say to a company executive or an entrepreneur, come into my class and tell about what you're doing. But I'm always saying is that I prepare the students with questions to you, and they are ready to work on a challenge for you, but that's the way we work in my class. So highly effective in the way that you bring the outside world in, but you dictate how it's done.
Segunda fila.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question for you. What is the right percentage of entrepreneurial skills we need to develop into the curricula? There is a minimum or a maximum average percentage into the curriculum?
That's a very interesting question, and I think it would be one to give an answer like a percentage, and the reason is I think students are equipped with different skill set, competencies as they come in, but also think they are equipped with different destinations. We used to have a program which was purely consulting, Hult's legacies in consulting, and students who wanted to work in government, or they wanted to work as an entrepreneur even, or they wanted to work in general management, they felt it was too niche. And over the years, as we have grown, we have been able to expand a little bit that, and I think we have given students different paths. So of course, as an entrepreneurship faculty member, my answer to you would be 80%, right? And then of course, for someone else it would be less. So that would be my kind of way of ducking your question.
Tenemos en la mitad, por favor, si nos ayuda.
Hi there, my name is Edward. I'm from Universidad Católica de Oriente. My question is pretty simple. Like in all of these contexts, how are you dealing with humanism or all of ethics and all of this kind of stuff in your faculty? Thank you.
I think that's a very important question, and Hult and Ashridge are both UN Prime signatories. Actually, Ashridge was one of the original signatories of UN Prime, and Henrik, my school where I come from, is also one of the early ones. Hult Prize definitely is a kind of practical way of working with sustainability and trying to bring civic leadership into societies where perhaps that's missing component. When you look at our course structure, our faculty actually are expected to talk about ethics and sustainability in each individual course. But that's another way you will see that come true. Okay.
Una pregunta más. ¿Vamos? Se iba a acabar el tiempo, pero justo a tiempo.
Sí, gracias. Por favor, ¿me podría indicar de cuál es la metodología o la mejor manera de despertar en los estudiantes ese gigante que está dentro de ellos, hacedor? Gracias.
Sorry, once more. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you very much. I think that when you look on students, the younger they are, the more curious they are. When we work with K-12 and the entrepreneurship program, that's one of the most practical entrepreneurship programs I've ever been involved in. And it was run by junior achievement. And the way we worked was we took their curriculum to schools and we started to work with students. It had little to do with business planning. It was more about how can we create an executable business. They were very, very eager to be part of it. And I would say actually on the kind of the realm of things, when you look on students who are more senior in a higher education institution, MBA students for example, they typically are set on a path. They have family, they have a mortgage, they have perhaps student loans, and they have more to lose. So it's harder to get them spirited and excited. One thing I've done in my kind of tenure as a dean was I took young master's students. We didn't have undergraduate students at the time at Hult in Boston, but I took young master's students and merged them with the senior MBA students as teams. And it was amazing to see when we worked for companies like Nokia or Google and so forth, see them solve challenges together. You had the MBAs being the seniors who kind of understood the context, but you had the young master's students who were very hungry and eager to bring innovation, creativity to the team. And typically, I always had teams who were just young master's students and just MBA students. And I would say the combination, the diversity of these teams brought the richness. And the companies were the ones who selected the winners, and typically the winners were mixed teams of more junior and more senior kind of students. And I think that will be my encouragement. Activate the society through clubs, through competitions, through curriculum, and also ensure that there is diversity in terms of the seniority of the students who are involved in entrepreneurial activities. It's not one cup all, and especially if you come from a university, you have the richness of different disciplines. That's something as a business school we at Hult don't have, but of course as a community in Boston we have a lot of that. So I'm, for example, myself involved with some of the universities in town and can bring in technology, innovation, biotech and so forth to our students. But that's the kind of way I would do it. I would try to help them get into that world. And you need to give it step by step. You can't give it all at once because otherwise they get overwhelmed. And you need to do it on their terms. That's very much my course also when I teach at Harvard, for example, or at Hult. I give them very little content in the beginning. I try to assess where they are standing and where they want to go. And then I start feeding them with cases or with text that I think is relevant. But I try to kind of get them at the outset, understand what they want and where they are before I move forward.
La última, just the last one. And then more.
Hi, my name is Freddy Alvarez and I'm coming from the Universidad Católica Oriente in Rio Negro, Turkey. Thanks for your presentation. But I have a question. In terms of the kind of innovation you're promoting, about the social innovation, how do you catch those ideas and those needs that the context are requiring? And maybe are there different between the model you use in order to promote the innovation for the companies and the innovation for the society?
Yeah. So in terms of innovation, how I capture it, if I start with that one, it's actually very systematic and I actually categorize it. So from the beginning, every student brings in 3 ideas. I actually have a way of mapping them, and I actually create teams based on what type of ideas they bring to the table, also what kind of backgrounds they have. So I try to kind of help the teams underway by categorizing them. And typically the ideas are very consumer oriented initially, and I'm a B2B person, business to business background, so I typically think in ways that I can help the team at least initially start from a B2B landscape, because often it's easier to start. So that's kind of something I'm looking on the team, what kind of skills they have, and then I build that kind of side of it. So the kind of the social aspect comes in there in terms of looking at what kind of individuals we have and building that society. In the beginning, before we go into the kind of the heavy lifting, I do a lot of socializing work. So I will have different team assignments. One of the funniest ones would be, there are many, but one would be build the Statue of Liberty. And I will judge you based on the kind of reality of it, but also your creativity. And the creativity goes to how tall it is, and reality is how lookalike it is. And it's a stupid thing, but they take it super seriously, and it's one of the first assignments they do as teams, and that really helps them to understand who they are as individuals, how competitive they are, what skills they can bring to the table. Thank you.
Bueno, creo que ha sido una mañana muy interesante, partiendo desde todos los temas de la hegemonía del managerial, como nos lo presentó el doctor Varela, luego desde la Universidad Francisco de Paula Santander nos dieron un tema muy interesante del currículo, y el doctor subiría una reflexión sobre la problemática que estamos viviendo en la educación, y ahora nos retan desde un punto de vista de cómo incorporar todo el tema de emprendimiento, innovación, el rediseño de los currículos, parte de lo que tocaba el doctor Subiría. Démosle un fuerte aplauso al doctor Totterman. Estoy seguro que todo lo que hemos visto esta mañana va a ser temas muy interesantes del siguiente panel de discusión, porque las personas que van a estar al frente de él de verdad tienen un conocimiento muy amplio y maravilloso que nos ayudarán a entender y aterrizar mejor todas estas ideas.